This is my ZMR 250, and this is one of my longtime favorite quads. It's been flying for me real well with these 1806 motors and 6-inch props. Anyway, this weekend we had a race that was sponsored by Voodooquads and Aerobot, and this thing ended up hitting a tree. Now I'm sure it was obviously not my fault, but when this hit the tree, it broke the two propellers. Nothing else on the quad was damaged, but the propellers were busted, so I was kind of frustrated with it. And I got out my fastest quad, which is my ET200, and you might notice something's a little off on this quad. This quad, actually, this arm nailed the same tree that my ZMR 250 did, and it busted this arm up here in the same location again, up here on the end of it. I've had all four arms break in the same location. Anyway, I'm tired of this little frame. It's awesome in the fact that it's real light, and because it's real light, it can move through the air real quick. But it has these little 1mm plates up here on top and these little 2mm arms. So, because this weekend's race was sponsored by Voodooquads, I have a Voodooquad frame. Now, this is my first real American-made frame. This one, when I first saw this, I thought it looks awesome with this orange plate on here, and you can get a solid black if you want to, but this is what it looks like, and it's very, very, very nicely cut. Everything on this frame looks like it's real professional, and I am really digging it so far. Along with the frame, you also get a power distribution board like this, and it snaps in here. You get the camera mount, looks like this here, and this goes up in the front. It also has the bottom plate here for, and it has the two layers on it, so your ESCs can actually mount onto your power distribution board here, and this will sit up over top of it. And then on top of this, you have the top plate that looks like this. It's high enough that you can put a battery. The battery is designed to slide in underneath this here in the back. Now, if you look in some of the pictures on the website, you'll notice that there's an extra hole back here on this upper plate. And the hole used to be used for their antenna, and that's where they wanted you to mount it. But what happened was the antenna mount came down too low, and so what that ended up doing was it restricted the size of 4S battery that you could actually put inside of it. Along with that, it also came with a battery strap, a Voodooquads battery strap, and this goes in through this bottom plate right here, so when you put the battery in, the strap will hold the battery in place. Also included with the kit is the parts bag. Looks like this, has all the standoffs and screws in it that you need. Now, in addition to this, because I'm trying to fly faster than I ever have before and get actually place in some of our races, I also have this camera mount. This is a camera tilt mount, and it replaces the two standoffs in the front of the quad, and it allows you to tilt the camera back and it holds it in place. Now there's frame build videos by Voodooquads out there, and I'll have some links to those in the description. There's also a link to how to install this into your quad, and I'll have a link to it in the description as well. But right now I'm going to go ahead and get this quad put together so you can see what it looks like. Before I get started building this, I'm going to go ahead and show you some thicknesses of these plates. This is the power distribution board, and this is 1.52 millimeters thick. This is the upper plate here, and this is 1.42 millimeters thick. And this one here is 1.4 millimeters thick. Now this main frame, it's kind of rounded on these edges, like I said before, and like I said, it just looks really sharp. Let's see, this main plate here, look at this. You got 5.41 millimeters thick. Let me measure the back end of this, just so we can get a comparison here. 5.46 millimeters thick here on the back. This thing is so thick. I am seriously hoping that I do not have much of a chance of breaking this. Let me get this thing put together. One tip for those just getting into quads: this is a 1.5 millimeter Allen wrench, and this is a 2.0 millimeter Allen wrench. I would suggest strongly go on eBay, search for 10-pack of both of these, and buy 10. Because when you have one and you lose it, and then you can't take your quad apart, it is so frustrating. Usually these 1.5 millimeters are good for like 1806 motor screws, and these 2.0 millimeter Allen wrenches are good for frames that you're usually putting together. Here it is fully assembled, and when you go to put this together, just remember that these 4 screws right here are the middle size screws, and the 2 back here in the back are the longest screws. They're a little bit longer so they can go through the plates and also down here into the landing gear. Now you look on the bottom here, this is kind of cool. Landing gear is in the middle on the back, and it's up here on the outer arms in the front. And it still sits very nice, and the look of this thing is so cool. I like the orange and the black together. Anyway, I got the strap on here, so this is how it would come if you ordered a whole kit ready to go with all the pieces for the frame. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this scale set up, and I'll go ahead and get this measured for the weight. Here's the scale. Comes in at 194.9 grams. Here I have this extra camera mount. This is a special Voodooquads made camera mount, and what it does is the board camera screws onto these two screws, and then you can take it and you can tilt your camera a little bit more forward, a little bit more up, so you can go a little faster. Because you're not buying a Voodooquads frame because you want to go slow. You want to fly this thing fast, just like Cody Matson. And the only way to do that is if you tilt your camera back a lot. And this is the point where you better be glad that you actually bought this little 1.5mm Allen wrench, because that's what these little screws here on the front take. They take the 1.5, not the 2. So let me get this weighed with this new camera mount in. We'll see how much weight this actually added. Now when I added this in, I also pulled out the camera plate and the two original mounting posts, because the kit has its own special ones with the little grooves cut in here so you can tilt your camera and screw it in place. So with the new camera mounts in place, this comes in at 199.1 grams total. So to put this frame together, all you need is the 2mm Allen wrench. Like I said, the 1.5 is usually if you want to get like 1806 motors or something with the smaller size screws. Now with this one, this has the holes in here for the 1806 motors, the 2mm screws. That'd be this little short one here, and here, the little pieces here. If you're going to use the 2204 or bigger motors, even the Voodooquad motors, you're going to be using these bigger holes here because they got a little bit bigger screws to mount to the motors. So here's my ZMR 250 and my Voodooquads frame, and you can tell from front to back the Voodooquads frame is a little bit longer than the ZMR 250, and from side to side it's a little bit more narrow than the ZMR 250. Now with the ZMR 250, the only option you really have is to mount your battery up on top. That's just because if you're like most people, you're not running landing gear and there's nowhere to squeeze it in inside. Now on the Voodooquads frame, they want you to keep all the components up here toward the front, so that way the battery can slip in here and be somewhat protected from crashes, and it also lowers the center of gravity down a little bit. And you can mount your ESCs down on here to the bottom plate onto the power distribution board as well. Like I said earlier, they removed this upper hole here so that you can fit larger batteries in here. This is a 4S Bonka battery. It's a 65C 4S battery, and it fits in here just nicely because that little place is open. Now you can see here that there's actually enough room you can mount your CC3D or your NASA 32 up here on the top, and it still wouldn't get in the way of the battery. Now if you're going to run something more like a 1500 size battery, then this one's gonna, it still fit. This is the Giant Power 1500 65C battery, and this is a 3S. This one's a little bit shorter, so it clears the plate down here just fine, but it also could it can also fit on this plate. Wow, I didn't really think it would, but it does. It can fit on there too. And I'll probably end up putting a piece of Velcro on here just because I don't like to see the batteries slide out. I use the strap to hold them down and the Velcro to keep them from sliding out. And also on the power distribution board, the place where you connect your batteries back here on the back. And so you'll want to run it back here, and when you hook your battery up, this thing stays back here nice and tight so it's not sticking out and getting chopped up by your propellers. This you'd want to strap it down to. So on this quad, I'm actually going to be running 50-45 props, and here's a 5-inch prop, and if I put it up here on the motor here, you can see how it clears the frame just fine. There's not any problem with the spinning. Now if you are thinking you could run 6-inch on a 250 frame, no, it's not going to work. This thing is bashing into the poles. So if you wanted to run 6-inch props, you'd have to get a 280 frame. They can run the 6-inch props, but this one's a 250. Now, like I said earlier, because you're running 4-inch props, Voodooquads sells a 2000 kV motor, and with the 2000 kV motor, they really want you to run the 4S. And with the 4S battery like this one, this is where you're going to get your most bang for your buck, especially with the 50-45 props. If you run 50-30 props, it'll probably be fun too, but the 50-45 should give you a lot more thrust than the 50-30s. I've flown with Cody Matson a few times, and I have seen him fly and crash his Voodooquads frame, and I'm surprised at the abuse that it takes and still flies. He's an awesome pilot, don't get me wrong. Now, this has just been a quick little review of this frame, and I'm going to be building this frame out. I'm going to be using the Voodooquads 2S to 4S ESCs. These are Simon K, and I'm going to be using the Voodooquads Gold 2000 kV 2S to 4S lipos, and these things look like they're awesome. It's the same ones that Cody Matson flies on his, and this frame is available either individually as parts, you can put it together yourself, or they actually offer it fully assembled, ready to fly. All you got to do is just basically bind it to your transmitter and you're ready to fly. Anyway, if you have any questions about this, you can check out the Voodooquads homepage, or you can ask me any questions in the comments, and I'll try to help you out as best I can. And as always, thanks for watching.